All right, can we go ahead and bring the meeting to order, please?
The City of San Clemente respects the many people of different faiths who reside here. The City Council historically begins its session with an invocation offered by one of the religious leaders of our community, with full appreciation of our shared belief that we are one nation under God. And while the City cannot endorse any particular religion, we respect the religious freedom and freedom of expression of all our citizens to pray as they feel led to pray. This evening's invocation will be given by Roger Gale of Heritage Christian Fellowship.
Great. If you could please stand for the invocation and remain standing after for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you for the privilege. Father, we thank you for the city that we live in. We thank you for the good government, Lord, for our beaches, for the beauty of this place, for the families. And God, we pray your blessing, your continued favor on our city, our government, our schools, our businesses, Lord, the churches, the families, the marriages. Lord, pour out your blessing. God, we pray for the city staff, the council members here today. God, that you would give them wisdom in their role, in their decision making, to know what's good and right and how to govern our city well, and give them the courage to do that they know what is right. And we thank you that you hear our prayers. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you please join me in pledging allegiance to our great flag. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Councilmember Ham, Councilmember Ward, Mayor Pro Tem Bain,
Here.
and Councilmember Ferguson is absent.
So briefly, before we get into the agenda, I just wanted to announce that items 7A and 7B are going to be continued to the next council date, which I believe is October 2nd?
October 1st.
October 1st. So folks that have submitted cards, if you could please come back on October 1st to speak to those items, we'd appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and council members and public, just to explain briefly the reason for the continuance. This was requested by the applicant. They could not be here tonight, so this will be pushed to October 1st. In addition, because of ethics rules that govern both the attorney and the council, we cannot hear comment on either 7A or 7B. There will actually be a different attorney in my place on October 1st from a different law firm due to a series of cases called the Nightlife Quintero line of cases. There's also a conflict that's arisen with one of these issues. So if we heard these issues tonight, we actually wouldn't have a complete quorum of the council. So we actually couldn't have a meeting on these issues. So we are very, very grateful for those who have come to speak on this issue. Respect your time. We apologize for this, but please come back on the 1st. We will have a hearing with the complete council. With a quorum of the council. Thank you.
First item on the agenda is a toll road update.
So there was no meeting last month. So no updates at this time, but I do know that we are working on briefs for the toll road litigation cases that'll be filed this week, with hopefully a big hearing coming up in early November. So hopefully we'll have a good report out after that hearing in November.
Next item is update on homeless issue.
I just want to give a update with Eric Sund. Good evening. My name is Eric Sund, Assistant City Manager, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Just want to give you a really brief update as to what's going on with our homeless situation, specifically to the campsite. As you're aware, we recently did a cleanup and we only gave access to individuals who had residential ties to San Clemente. As of today, we have 27 campers at the lot. We are working very diligently with County Health and Mental Health and Mercy House on a daily basis, going out and trying to touch every camper to find if there's services that they can take, as well as I know we've been seeing the numbers diminish at Pico Park due to the county's efforts, both from the health department and mental health. And I also want to thank the sheriff's department. They've been a great partner as we've been dealing with a number of issues at the campsite in Pico Park, so they've really helped as well. We're doing property retrievals for people who have storage at the facility, so we do once a week. So our next property retrieval will be Monday from 10 to 11 a.m. Anybody who has property stored there can come to the security tent, and we will process getting their stuff back to them. On a good note, we had a husband and wife. The wife was about 4.5 months pregnant. We were able to get them, Mercy House was able to get them into a shelter for families and out of the campsite, which was a good win, especially for someone who's pregnant. And so at this time, it's all I have to report unless there's any questions from the council for me.
Any questions? None for me. Thanks,
Thank
sir.
you.
Appreciate it. So we have a couple of speaker cards. If you could come up to the podium when called, Rick Leffler will be first, followed by William Krutinger.
Council, how are you doing? Just to follow up on the assistant city manager, campground really looks a lot better, obviously, we know, than it did before. Myself and a couple of other citizens have been making field trips in the evening up to Pico Park, and they are clearing out Pico Park at 10 o'clock at night. They call themselves park rangers, but these guys, they look really young. Are they just code guys with polo shirts? I'm not sure what the park rangers are supposed to look like, but they're going up there diligently at 10:30 at night and making sure that they're gone. And they are camping a little bit or sleeping down by the entrance of the park, but I see that that's varying in numbers, so sometimes it's not that many. I would like to, again, ask that we keep on the animal control people to make frequent trips through there. There are, during the day, dogs running through there unleashed, and it seems like a good opportunity for somebody, the park rangers. Maybe the park rangers can cite, I guess, for that, or if they can't, the animal control can keep going through there and keep an eye on that. If we keep the animals and under control, it seems like it keeps a lot of the homeless people under control a little bit too. It gives them some sense of organization. I'd like to bring up also, I don't know if you heard last week, the San Diego Board of Supervisors implemented a program on proactive mentally challenged or mental ill homeless people. They're sending out teams to try to contact them and see if they qualify for 5150. If they don't, they're trying to get them at least referrals to help. It seems like it's a pretty good program, and maybe we could find out exactly how that's happened and maybe work with Lisa Bartlett or at the supervisors meeting, I was at the board of supervisors meeting, spoke there, although Lisa Bartlett already left. She decided she had a place to go, and I talked to Supervisor Doe a little bit, but he was busy with his telephone, so I asked them maybe if they could help us, but I don't think they really heard, but maybe somebody could reach out and see if maybe we could do something like the San Diego did. Also like to ask maybe that we remind the sheriffs, maybe work with Lieutenant Manhart. People are coming in, still getting off the bus at the 7-Eleven there, and a couple of people are interviewing him and asking me, can we help you? Is there any, you know where the camp is? And they're still saying that a lot of sheriffs in San Juan and Mission Viejo and Dana Point are telling them that hey, you've got this great place to go down here in San Clemente, which is true, but since they're all sheriffs, and maybe there's some way that they could, I don't know. I'm not saying it's dumping, but we should make sure that that the sheriffs aren't dumping down here on their other sheriffs. So maybe, that's something interdepartment they could talk about. But besides that, welcome back, and it's a nice small meeting. Maybe we'll get out of here before Jay Leno or whoever's over. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Rick. William Krutinger. Am I pronouncing that last name right?
Close enough. We've been doing it wrong for a long time, too.
Sorry, William, real quick.
Yeah.
James?
I'd just like to address the comment about other sheriffs dumping in the city or suggesting to people get on the bus. I know that Lieutenant Manhart and I have had this conversation, and he's had it with his compatriots at the Sheriff's Department. I've had the conversation with Assistant Sheriff Halleck, and he's assured me that that is not going on within the Orange County Sheriff's Department. So We've asked, and we'll continue to have that conversation, and they've assured me from the assistant sheriff that they're not doing that to San Clemente.
Great, thanks, James. Bill?
You ready? All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Dan Bain and Honorable Council. I had a presentation.
You have one?
Do you have it handy? The slides weren't quite in order. I was quite rushed today,
All right.
but we'll manage.
Which item was it?
That'd be the one. Okay, and I can find. Oh, you're going to do it for me?
I'm going to.
There you go. Oh, very good. That's an image that I was made aware of. Oh, thank you very much. About 2 weeks ago, and it's a little blurry because I zoomed in on it digitally. But that's a temperature of pretty close to 110 in a tent in the Pico lot. That's around September 5th, give or take a couple of days. So let me just click through here. This is a heat index chart. That's by the National Weather Service. As you can see on the top level there, when temperatures are at 110, it doesn't even matter what the humidity is. Everyone under those conditions is in extreme danger. And as I expect most people here understand, there are people in the city a lot that have physical or mental disabilities that will possibly preclude them from taking action to seek shade or cooler temperatures. A couple weeks ago, I suggested evaporative coolers, which are very cost effective. They can be bought or rented, and they're good for cooling areas, even open areas. They're very effective. I think, and actually the city, it wouldn't be unusual for a city to have a few of those in their possession already. And if they don't, they're very useful just for keeping crews cool on hot days when they're working outside. So something to think about, certainly. You'd get a lot of bang for your buck there. And yeah, so after that, I kind of started watching the temperatures a little more closely. This is from a couple days ago, 109.5. There's a heat advisory that day, so that's, our local weather folks telling us that these are dangerous conditions. And I was, when I found that the city wasn't going to do anything promptly about that, I decided to try to do something myself. So I bought a small cooler and canopy, and I asked Eric Sund for the rules that are kind of managing the city lot, and he furnished them to me promptly, for which I'm grateful. And I understood everything I had to be perfectly compliant with those rules, and I was not allowed to provide any relief from the heat, despite that. I hope that the City Council will take a more appropriate action to solve this and not put people in a position where they feel compelled to act on their own. But if the city won't act, I would appreciate being allowed to at least bring in the canopy and cooler that's consistent with the rules for the lot.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Next is presentation of proclamation to Pat Mueller and Bertie Lloyd, Daughters of the American Revolution, proclaiming September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week.
Is there a proclamation ready for us?
I have one ready. I'll bring it down.
While you're...
Presentation first. I didn't want to steal the spotlight.
Well, I wasn't sure what order.
No, perfect. Well, I'll come down and I'll read it first. How about that?
Good.
So, I have a proclamation here. I, Dan Bain, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of San Clemente, California, acting on behalf of the City Council and the citizens of San Clemente, do hereby proclaim September 17th, 2019 through September 23rd, 2019 as Constitution Week in the City of San Clemente, and by doing so, ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals that the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained.
Thank you.
Do you have anybody here with a camera? Can we get a quick picture? Or?
I don't have a camera.
That's all right.
No. September 17th in 1787 was the date that it was signed, and on September 17th, all through the country, the Daughters of the American Revolution have arranged that there's the ringing of the bells. And in San Juan Capistrano, where we're celebrating, the bells rang at the Mission at precisely 1 p.m. And across the country, depending on their time zone, that's when they rang. The other thing that we can offer to the citizens of San Clemente is that we have displays in the public libraries, including the one in San Clemente, and I would encourage everyone to go see that. Bertie?
Well, thank you for the proclamation, but I would like to thank the City Council for all their hard work on making our city safe and getting the homeless situation under control. And I know it's been a lot of difficult work, but we certainly do appreciate it for our city, and I thank you with all of our DAR members.
Jackson's going to get a quick picture. Do you know his mind?
Okay.
Get a quick picture. Thank you, Jackson.
No, I gotta send this one in to Carrie after. Can't be in it. All right.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Next is a presentation by Mickey Rathman concerning Pure Pride Month activities and fundraising progress.
Good evening, council, friends, and neighbors. Mickey Rathman, a local resident, business owner, and board member for San Clemente Pure Pride. And for, I guess, without fear of dating myself, in 1988, I was named Daughters of the American Revolution Good Citizen. So it's so nice to see your special proclamation for them, and thank you for all your hard work. But I'm here tonight to talk about the San Clemente Pier. And all the great stuff that's going to be happening in the next rest of the year, really. Pure Pride Month, the council, and signed by then Mayor Kathy Ward. October is officially Pure Pride Month. We have a beautiful proclamation, which we're very proud of. And so we hold and host many of our fundraising events and activities during the month of October. So I'm excited to share those with you this evening, as well as talking about the completion and successes of our 2019 projects and our upcoming exciting projects for 2020. Our 2018, so I'll back up a quick second. We typically fundraise in 1 year for projects then that get complete the next. So we say our 2018 fundraising was for projects that then we implemented and completed this year in 2019. And this is a group of local residents and sponsors on a rainy day, one of our few rainy days in San Clemente, out on the pier celebrating the installation of our educational signs that went up. So you can see all kinds of great folks there under our umbrella. We want to give a shout out and some thanks to the council and staff for helping us to complete this project, as well as the recently installed test fishing line recycling canisters that have been installed. It's a really big effort, as anyone probably recognizes. Working with and within city government to get things done takes a lot of effort from volunteers as well as for staff. So we wanted to give a shout out for both projects for help from Randy Little, Tom Vonnegut, Samantha Wiley, Miley Stevens, Eric Sund, James Makshinoff, Chris Wright, Cecilia Delgado, and Gabriel Perez. Your guidance through the various departments and steps that we needed to take to get these things implemented for the betterment of our pier and for our community, we're incredibly grateful. So thank you very, very much. Why Pure Pride? We get this question sometimes. Why do we need to have an organization that helps support the San Clemente Pier? We started the organization in 2016 to help to preserve, improve, and protect. We have a long-term goal of setting up an endowment fund for the future so that we can continue to make improvements and protect this beautiful, iconic asset within our city. 100% of the funds that we raise, go to the city, and 100% of our efforts are volunteer-based. The city lost a number of years ago some California redevelopment funds, and that's sort of where this idea took off and the seed was planted. It's like, wow, what are we going to do now that we don't have that money? We need to find a way to keep funding great things there. So that's how our board started. And you can see there's our Peer Pride Month proclamation right up there at the top, which we love, as well as one of our former volunteers and board members giving a $25,000 check to the city for some projects of that year. Our fundraising this year for projects that we're going to complete in 2020, one of those is to improve the restrooms and the restroom renovation and improvements that the city is doing on the pier. The San Clemente Pier gets thousands and thousands, actually I think millions, what do we get, like 2 million visitors a year, I think, to the San Clemente Pier, and many people are grateful as they make their trek to the end of that pier that there is a restroom there. So it's great that it's going to see some improvements and be something that the city can be proud of. Pier Pride is providing $50,000 of additional funds to do some little extras to make the pier restroom even that much special. One of those is a water bottle refilling station and drinking fountain. The pier restrooms did have a drinking fountain many years ago, but it was removed after something happened to it and it wasn't able to be replaced. So we're excited that we actually already have a sponsor, so that's something that we've already fulfilled on our wish list, as well as both skylights, so that there can be some natural light, so that folks can see when they're in those restrooms. For individuals who may be interested in participating and donating funds to this project, we are still have some sponsorship opportunities available in regards to flooring, light fixtures, and exterior painting. So while we are excited about the great progress that we've made so far in fundraising for this project, we still have lots of opportunities available for you to get involved and to help with this amazing project. Peer Pride Month, woohoo, it's happening. October is Peer Pride Month, and we officially kick off Peer Pride Month on September 27th, with a sunset dinner at the Fisherman's Galley, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. We also have a really fun yacht rock cruise and some other opportunities for people to get involved. October 17th, there's a Peer Pride Amplified event at H.H. Cotton's, where a percentage of all of the sales made that evening do get donated back to our organization, so we encourage you to go and visit. Thank you for those of you who came out last night to our Panera Bread fundraiser, again with proceeds benefiting the San Clemente Pier. October 29th, there's another opportunity for you to head out for dinner and not have to cook at home at Wahoo's Tacos, who's also another local business that very generously donates proceeds to benefit our organization and our San Clemente Pier. San Clemente is an incredibly generous town with lots of charities and organizations do a lot to help them. One of those is Goodies Tavern, and they have a great Monday night bingo program, and every Monday, of which there happens to be 5 in October, benefits Peer Pride. So if you're looking to come out, have a cold beverage, watch some Monday Night Football, play some bingo, win some great prizes, Goodies is the place to do that, as all proceeds do benefit Peer Pride in helping us to make improvements and preserve and protect our amazing San Clemente Pier. The exclusive sunset dinner is something really fun and a really unique opportunity where you get to sit and have dinner literally at sand level, looking at the ocean, looking at our iconic pier, and watching the sunset with a great dinner from Fisherman's Restaurant. It's a 5-course wine-paired meal. There's a cigar lounge, silent auction, live auction. It's a great evening. Tickets are selling out fast, so if you are interested in participating, this will be our 3rd annual exclusive sunset dinner. So word is out, so if you do want to get a ticket, please head to our website at peerpride.org to reserve your spot. Yacht Rock, okay, I don't know. I think it will be less than a 3-hour cruise, and we'll definitely make it back to dock. But we're having a Yacht Rock, a Gilligan's Island sunset cruise that'll be departing from the Dana Point Harbor on the Dana Wharf and headed to the San Clemente Pier and back, where you can enjoy some food, some libations, and please feel free to dress up. We'd love to see some, captains and Gilligans out there. I believe that there's going to be some prizes for the best Gilligan's Island costumes, so I can't wait to see who wins. There'll be pictures for sure. There are still tickets available for this event, so again, please head to our website at purepride.org to get your tickets to enjoy this incredible opportunity to set sail and see the San Clemente Pier from the ocean side. Another amazing project that we're working on for 2020 is a public art initiative, which the council approved in June, which we're just so thrilled to be able to have, and it follows the utility box art program for those in the community who are familiar with seeing those utility boxes decorated throughout the community. It's similar in that, where local residents can submit an art idea. So you'll want to go to visit the website at purepride.org to enter, to get your information on how that you can submit an art idea to be put on the pier. We hope to have all of our information and designs available in November, and there's a 5-person jury that's going to be voting on what art will be put on the utility door on the bathrooms at the pier. And we do have a spot open. We were hoping that maybe one of our council members, Chris or Kathy, if you would like to participate and be the 5th person on our art jury. So I don't know if you want to raise your hand now. We're happy to have you join, or if you want to message me later to let me know if you're available and interested. The time commitment isn't too big. It'll probably be the first 2 weeks in November for the voting. There's also some city staff and other folks from the Arts Commission piece who are on that jury as well. So Kathy, we'd love to have you. Thank you. So any artists out there, we'd love to see your designs so that we can have something fun, art on the pier, and decorate that utility door. We get a lot of positive feedbacks about the improvements that we have made on the San Clemente Pier. We get thank you notes mailed to our P.O. box and emails, which is just really great. I just wanted to share a couple things with you. I am from Iowa, and I am out visiting my brother. I always walk the beach trail and down to the end of the pier. I noticed your signs right away today and stopped and read each one. Loved them. Thank you for teaching us more about your community. Kay Lewis. We also received a really incredible donation recently based upon someone who came to visit an ailing parent, and they were walking on the pier and realized how much that their parent loved the pier, and they were looking for ways to work on legacy planning for their parents, and thought, wow, this is a great opportunity to be able to utilize some of their family funds to honor the memory of their parent. So we're just so proud and so thankful that we have this opportunity to do something good for our community, and also to get such great feedback and funds from community members who recognize what a beautiful town we have and how important the pier is. All right, so there we have it, San Clemente Pier. Pier Pride, our Pier Pride month is coming. I did bring some flyers for council and staff here about our activities for Pier Pride month, as well as for our Yacht Rock event. If you felt like coming out, costume or no costume, you're welcome, but we do hope that people dress up, and we're just so grateful and thankful for our partnership with the city and with the community, and to be able to do such great work to improve and protect such a beautiful, iconic, historical asset within the city of San Clemente. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. Thanks for all the work that you and Pier Pride do.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Members of the audience who wish to address council on matters that are within the jurisdiction of the City of San Clemente, but not separately listed on the agenda, may do so during the oral communications portion of the meeting. Speakers may address council once during either oral communications part 1 or part 2, A total time limitation of 30 minutes is allocated for oral communications part 1, with each speaker being allotted 3 minutes, which to give his or her presentation. And I do have cards.
All right, first up, Ken Nielsen, followed by Rick Leffler, and then Dee Coleman.
Close that out. Picture. Thank you.
Mr. Nielsen wants to talk to us about parking.
Me? Okay, first of all, I want to thank you all for letting me put a plaque for Van Rutan at the San Clemente Pool. It looks beautiful. We're going to have a swimming event there on October 5th. You may have seen it on Facebook. And they're going to bring out their big toy that they have, and everybody's invited. Bring your kids especially. First 25 swim free. After that, it's $2 for kids, $4 for adults. Spectators are free. So please bring all your kids. Anybody else come down to the pool on October 5th between 11 and 1 and go swimming with us. Okay, now parking. We have a big parking problem in San Clemente. As you guys know, you've all seen it. You know it's there. The problem is we don't have anybody to enforce it. Our chief has duties that keep him from enforcing the parking. We need either a couple of CSOs or we need to get the RSVPs working on it. The cost of a CSO is $119,312 a year. I can't believe that CSO can't pay for himself in parking tickets. So they wouldn't cost us anything. We'd probably make a profit, right? I see you grinning. You know I'm right. We need parking enforcement throughout all of San Clemente. And 2 CSOs would pay for themselves. Wouldn't cost us anything. So why don't we have them? And please do something about that. Or RSVPs if we have to do that. But the park rangers aren't going to work. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next up is Rick, followed by Dee Coleman.
And real quick, I just want to, we're talking about the dumping and the sheriffs, James. I wasn't saying that the sheriffs are doing that. I was saying that I have heard that from people getting off the bus. The idea that them lying is probably not out of the realm of possibility. I was just saying, I know police sometimes have a low attention span. I say that because I'm police. We sometimes have a low attention span, and it's always good to reinforce, you know, that, hey, guys, make sure you're not, going out of your way to send anybody down here. So that was all. It was just a reminder. Also like to bring up what I did find out at the Board of Supervisors meeting. There was some talk about city councils coming up with proclamations being in favor of repealing Propositions 47 and 57, the ones that decriminalized a ton of crimes and cut down penalties and jail times. I don't know exactly how that's done, but they were saying that you should go back and have your council talk about this and maybe doing that. If that's a mechanism and that's something you could agree on, that might be somewhere to really take a stand too and say we really want to see things change. And the last thing about the CSOs and the parking, that was a good point. And I know we lost a CSO in the last deputy when we added deputies, but we lost a CSO position. And I'm wondering if we were supposed to get it back. So we were down to 1. I'm wondering if we ever got that back, and if we didn't, if that's in the works, because certainly we do need the parking people to be all geared up. So again, if that hasn't happened, if we haven't replaced it, I think there was a mechanism for that, and maybe we could follow up on that. Besides that, hey, thanks a lot.
Dee Coleman, followed by Jackson Hinkle, and then Paul Buck.
Good evening. Just a little plug for the Daughters of American Revolution. They have a fantastic building in Washington, D.C. over by the White House, but beautiful museum over there. Our election's in full swing now, and we had the council candidate forum. Chris Ham, thanks for coming over and popping in there. It was good to see you. I'm not a politician, but I can clearly see the politics need to be taken out of City Hall here. And there's been a lot of politics at play for a while, and the people of San Clemente have suffered. As many know, I'm running for a seat on this council. I have experience running big businesses. I'm a local businessman as well here in town. If San Clemente were a true business, it'd be facing some challenging ways to stay open for business. If I'm elected for council, I'll bring my business skills and solutions that I've learned in real-life situations over the years to this council.
That's not allowed, I'm sorry.
Focusing on efficiency and professionalism and accountability and hitting on things that hit the mark,
Please,
will be the goal.
don't interrupt the speaker.
Running a city successfully is hard work. Our current challenges with city management, homelessness, police budgets, and politics are exerting pressure on this council and affecting the ability to collaborate effectively together. President Trump has come to our area this week, and he's focused on this homeless issue, and he's putting a lot of attention towards this. And I know he's in touch with a lot of people in Southern California right now that can help our city. So I hope that this council will work close with the different agencies and the federal agencies to do that, and hopefully eliminate the numbers that we have with our homeless. I gave you guys some questions there, and one of the questions I have, I'm just wondering if you guys have an outline or plan lined out over the next 6 to 12 months of how to address the homelessness issue that we've got here in our area. And I'd also like to get your thoughts, if you can, not tonight, but have some transparency with the effect if Orange County will be doing a regional facility in the southern SPA. So anyways, those are my things, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Jackson Hinkle, followed by Paul Buck, and then Susan Ambrose.
Greetings, Council. My name is Jackson Hinkle. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the issue that is currently unfolding at the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station. Recently, Senator Pat Bates put a bill forth, that Senate Bill 465, that would continue.
Sorry, Jackson, sorry, that's actually on the agenda, so if you want to speak.
Speaking to other items related to San Onofre as well, so I'm going to continue. Senator Pat Bates put forth Bill 465, which is going to continue and maintain funding for emergency preparedness, and I'd hope that you support that bill. But I would also hope that as council you make a move to propose that there's an increase in funding or a usage of our $4 billion in ratepayer funds for the decommissioning of the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station to implement a full-time NRC oversight officer at the plant to oversee decommissioning processes. That would be different than the Senate Bill 465. I think it would do a lot of good when it comes to the decommissioning. There's been a number of safety concerns at the plant in the decommissioning process thus far with regards to canisters being downloaded and getting scratched and gouged as they are downloaded into their permanent storage site. I think having an NRC inspector on site at all times would be a great move, and it'd be a great move for our city council to propose to either the state or the federal government and continue that dialogue with higher up elected officials and support all efforts to maintain that the waste is safely stored, the decommissioning is done in a smooth and quick process, and that waste gets out of there as quickly as possible. So thank you, and I'd hope you consider my comments.
Jackson. Next is Paul Buck, followed by Susan Ambrose, and then Huyen Ip.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, members of staff. I don't want to pile on with all the stuff. We have big problems in this town, and from what I can tell, you're making very good progress on these things. So I just want to raise one minor thing. I'm a regular on the beach trail, and I've been doing that since ever the beach trail was put in place. There has been a change over the last year or 18 months, and that's been due to electrified bikes. And these bikes are racing, kids on these bikes are racing up and down the beach trail, and it's becoming downright dangerous. I'd like to see you do something about that, either ban them or somehow control them. But it's an issue. I think it's just a matter of time before there's a more serious accident, and I think you should look into it. It's a minor problem with a quick fix. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Susan Ambrose, followed by Huyen Ip, and then Courtney Morrow.
Good evening, esteemed City Council members. I first want to compliment you on all the hard work that you've put in over the years. Particularly this year has been very challenging for all of you, and I applaud you for your dedication and commitment to coming up with effective solutions rather than continuing to focus on only problems. You've come up with answers that are suitable and reasonable for our community, and you continue to do so. So thank you very much as a longtime resident. But I'm here for some fun. I'm here to talk to you about California Coastal Cleanup Day. As you know, I also sit on the city's Coastal Advisory Committee, and this day is very near and dear to our hearts because one of our primary missions is to protect and preserve our city beaches and all the coastline, as well as clean water. So we rally behind this coastal cleanup day every year. And this year it's this Saturday, September 21st. And the people behind me will see that on the back of this poster, it's in Spanish. So for people who want to display this in their storefronts, if you put it in the window, you get a double benefit. These posters and these flyers are available. The flyers particularly are available. I have some tonight, the flyers, but they're also available on the city website under Environmental Services. So I encourage you to download and print these out and share with your businesses or your neighbors or your family, your friends. If your children go to school in the area, share them, and because the teachers will love you for them. At any rate, this is also important because there are 3 stations on city beaches that will also provide cleanup supplies that you can use when you get down there, and that includes bags, gloves. You can register there as well, and you can get all your cards, so if you note up the trash, then you turn in your trash there, it will get weighed, and you will be counted as one of the many who pitch in and help San Clemente. And what could be a better way for high schoolers to earn volunteer service credits? There's another thing that audience members and you, the city council, can pass along to your constituents for tips like this. Or you can bring your own cleaning supplies or cleaning tools if you'd like to. I have posters for each of the city council members to take. You can take one. I have one wrapped around the tree in my yard, as do some other people. Chris knows my neighborhood, so he knows what that's like. It's a big old tree, and you can't miss it. So that's a good attention getter. But also, even in putting it up, probably 20 people going down the street, including teachers, asked about when this was happening, how could they get a poster, etc. The posters you can also get on the California Commission, Coastal Commission website, and you can go to www.coastkeeper.org to pre-register, which will give you a heads up when you get down there to start cleaning up trash, or to pre-register down at the site. I also, as I said, have these brochures for any people in the audience who might want them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll see you Saturday.
James, will we be able to get this on our website? Graphic? James, can we get this on our website, on our graphic? Yep.
By the way, I did want to add that I'll be hosting the table at T Street, and I've invited Bill Hart, who's joining me from the Watershed Task Force.
Thanks, Susan. So next is Hoyen Ip, followed by Courtney Morrow, and then Martina.
Good evening, Council. I'm Hoyen Ip. My timing is so perfect. I'm a cleanup volunteer, and I highly recommend this experience. It's a lot of fun. Now, another thing I want to say is, one thing bugs me is that sometimes cleanup volunteers, apparently they're not professionals, they come with a Starbucks plastic thing. Okay, you come with it, fine, just own it, right? Go, oh, normally I don't come with it, it's just today. So, okay. Now, I want you to follow up from the last meeting. The last meeting was so interesting. Unfortunately, my item was at the very far end of the night. So many times I wanted to come up to say something, to make comments, but I figured if I keep coming up, then you guys, you again? So I didn't say too much. Tonight, I got nothing to lose now. So last time we talked about smoking. Cigarette butts has been persistently #1 leader item. So Irvine is writing a citywide smoking ban ordinance, first reading in October, just FYI. Second thing is that, Kathy, my timing is so off. Last time we talked about the leaf blowers. So I'm not trying to be pushy or I'm just totally off. So I have a few points I want to say too. One is that Newport did ban gas leaf blowers years ago in the residential areas. So I don't have the updated knowledge, but at least in the residential areas. And last time a question came up was why we were only addressing leaf blowers, not lawnmowers. So I have a little bit additional info to tell you that nobody said that last time. So according to California Air Resources Board, it has a data comparing using this gas power device with driving a 2017 Toyota Camry. Okay, now listen. Using a gas-powered lawnmower for 1 hour emits as much pollution as driving the Camry for 300 miles. Now, if you use a gas-powered leaf blower for 1 hour, it emits as 1,100 miles. Did you get it? It's almost 4 times as much. So that's why we need to address a lower hanging fruit leaf blower. On the other hand, I think San Clemente is one of the leaders on moving away from fossil fuel into renewable energy. So this is another thing. So my 2 cents. Thank you.
Next is Courtney Morrow, followed by Martina.
Hi, good evening. I'm here tonight to speak as a resident of Rancho San Clemente who is opposed to the city's plan to amend the Rancho San Clemente specific plan to include public safety uses as an approved use within the industrial park for the sole purpose of moving the city-sanctioned homeless tent encampment from Pico to the industrial park. The industrial zone was excluded from the SB2 overlay due to its CAL FIRE's designation of the area as a very severe high fire hazard zone. This still remains the case. Moving a homeless tent encampment to a very severe high fire zone that is non-irrigated open space and nears heavily trafficked parks like Steed Park and San Clemente Skate Park, the animal shelter, and that is also easily accessible via the Ridge Route Trail to neighboring communities would pose an immediate risk to safety and crime. While others may argue that this is far away from neighborhoods, this couldn't be further from the truth. The industrial park is easily accessible by foot to multiple neighborhoods within Rancho San Clemente. As someone whose home is close to the Ridge Route Trail and knows firsthand how little anything is monitored and enforced along the route, I urge you to please reconsider placement in any area designated as a very severe high fire hazard zone to uphold legitimate public safety. As San Clemente faces many issues that have placed a financial burden on the budget, the city's proposal to include a fire substation is an expensive reaction to what should be fire prevention in the first place, which would include not placing a high-risk population known to start illegal fires in a high fire zone. The fact that I have to explicitly state this to our city's elected officials is completely absurd. Thank you for taking the time to think critically and logically about what is the best solution moving forward and focus your time and energy on finding real solutions aimed at a regional strategy for homelessness. Do not move this camp to where you feel would be out of sight and out of mind and kick the problem down the road to impact another community, pitting one neighborhood against another. I have faith that you will act in the best interest of all San Clemente residents and not just those with big pockets threatening lawsuits. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow. Next is Martina.
So good evening, Council. I'd like to start, I've got a couple comments. I'd like to start off on a positive note. And I'd like San Clemente City Council and the city to recognize a local high school student by the name of Owen O'Neill, who stopped a robbery from bonded cleaners recently. A homeless transient woman stole clothes off the back of the truck. He approached her, spoke to her in a courteous, polite way, and just encouraged her, don't steal. The second thing I'd like to discuss is I know that you guys have been working on the issue with the homeless encampment, and now people are sort of encroached on the sidewalks and other places. There's still a major issue on the alley. I call it Pig's Alley. That's the alley on Camino Real, where there's people camping in cars, there's people camping in RVs, and they haven't moved. If anybody parked their RV on a city street for 3 days or more, they would be tagged, they would be towed, and it would be at some expense. So I don't understand why this is allowed to continue behind local business. The third item I'd like to address is recently voted to limit public comments to, in regards to open session to 1 time per speaker. I disagree with this, especially with a lawsuit pending. Laura said point blank when it was raised, when it triggered the lawsuit, that these items should be voted on. It didn't happen, and now that it's voted on, I think it's very bad optics, especially it happens in such a limited time and a limited occasion. I don't think it was necessary, and it doesn't look good. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. That's all the cards I have.
So I'd just like to clarify for that last speaker that people aren't limited to 1 speaker time per evening as outlined by this gentleman sitting in the front seat here. Everybody has the opportunity to speak to every item. So if anybody feels limited to just speaking 1 time, as also outlined by the gal who spoke two issues before her, she also said she spoke multiple times the evening before. We have not limited anybody's speaking potential to any item or to just 1. You have the ability to speak to every item. And everybody still has the opportunity to speak during oral communications.
So I'll make the motion to waive a full reading of resolutions and ordinances. All in favor? Aye.
Okay. Closed session report, City Attorney.
There are no items to report, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by 1 motion without discussion unless council staff or the public requests removal of an item for separate discussion and action, and the public has requested the removal of item L.
Any items?
No.
Chris, do you have any items to remove? I have 1 item, 6M.
I'll make a motion to move the balance.
All in favor? Aye. Passes 3-0. 6L. Eric?
Good afternoon or good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council Members. Eric Sund, Assistant City Manager. Give a very brief report with regards to this item. So as the report indicates before you with the barbecue request from the Chamber of Commerce, there have been times when the city's paid 50%, and then more recently, the last couple of years, we've paid 100%. However, we haven't budgeted for the full 100%, and so knowing that that's probably going to be the trend going forward for 100%, we wanted to come to council to get council direction. We provided a funding scenario for the council to approve. I know there's been some discussions. We currently and have normally budgeted $17,500 a fiscal year for all marine-related sponsorships and services and programs. And with that being said, we haven't spent it because we are early in the fiscal year. If the council chose to just go ahead and fund the $13,000 and some change out of the $17,500, the council has the right to do so. My only disclaimer would be we would have not as much money left over for other marine-related activities within that budget. As I said, we've budgeted 50% in the budget. Thus, I'm asking for the additional 50% through appropriations as it's highlighted in the staff report. And with that, that concludes staff's report.
Any questions? Can we take a quick straw poll? In favor of approving this as staff recommended, so I think it'd be the funding for the entire amount. Yeah. All in favor? So, aye. 3 of us. Do our speakers want to speak based on that?
Just briefly. Yeah. Never works.
Rick, did you still want to speak?
Yeah, real quick.
Okay. It's never quick. I know, because when I go to a judge.
I haven't used 3 minutes once tonight.
Rick, followed by Wayne, and then Jim Wynn.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, we're a military town. We're all in favor of having a barbecue for the Marines. I think that's awesome, and I think you should go ahead and vote for it. But in the future, I mean, that's a lot of money. It just seems that we could do like a foundation or something. We could do fundraising and come up with that $13,000 through private fundraising. If we had a commission or a foundation, I mean, I'd serve on it. I'm sure there's a lot of citizens here that, I mean, if we put out cans at businesses in a year, we'd have $13,000 with just a picture of a Marine on it. So, I mean, I know the Chamber of Commerce, why they want 100% instead of 50%. They've got, a lot of budget challenges too, but I just think for the city to be funded all of it just doesn't make a whole lot of fiscal sense when we could certainly as a community come up with that money on our own, I think. That's all. Chris, you want me to speak any more? If I spoke? Okay, I'm done. Thanks a lot.
Rick, that'd be awesome. Somebody get that started. Wayne?
I will.
Followed by Jim Nguyen, and then Chuck Neri.
Wayne, I want to hear about fundraising for Marines.
We do a lot of fundraising for Marines. Park Semper Fi costs us over $20,000 a year. We'd love to have your donation. And that's our agreement we have with the city to fund Park Semper Fi. Thank you for your vote. I really appreciate that. A bit of history. In 1996, the city of San Clemente adopted 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. And at that time, asked the chamber to be the liaison. So the chamber did not adopt 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. The city of San Clemente did. And so, and by the way, the Marines give back to the city every year. And just in the last couple of years, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines has built box gardens for Marblehead Elementary School, for example. They do beach cleanups. They do the annual cleanup up north and south El Camino and the tree wells. They won't be able to do that this next year, Eric, because they'll be on deployment, so it needs to be budgeted. And also, you know, they do, at one year, they actually painted the pier, and they do semi-annual maintenance of Park Semper Fi. But we do a lot of fundraising for Marines. And we do it because to maintain Park Semper Fi, and also because to help Marine families out a great deal for 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. So there is a lot of fundraising going on. But I just want to emphasize, in fact, it's the city that adopted 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, not the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate it. Jim, followed by Chuck Neri.
City Council, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. Jim Nguyen, here on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. So I just wanted to speak to the cost for this picnic, because that might sound like a lot of money, but I wanted everybody to know that that's for 1,000 Marines and their families. And so it's about $13 per person. And at this picnic, there's barbecue, there's beer, there's a DJ. We give 300 to 400 gifts for the Marine families' kids, because it's the time of the year, is Christmas time. And there's 40 to 45 volunteers that put forth their time and effort to put on this picnic. And additionally, the chamber provides the staff. The staff spends their time, paid staff, to plan for the event and to attend the event. So I think it's a really worthwhile effort for these men and women who are risking their lives for us and for our way of life and for our freedom. So we want to support these men and women for everything they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Chuck Neri, followed by Bill Hart.
Well, thank you for funding that. So I can be pretty brief. I'll clarify one thing. The chamber does collect and spend the $13,700, which is what it's spent for 3 years, and $12,000 before that. But it is all direct costs. Everything that is spent is, you know, for the marine event. We don't charge any staff time. We basically lose money, but glad to do it. So it's a great event, and as Jim pointed out, it takes 40, 45 volunteers, and one family makes a big part of that effort. So anyway, thank you very much for that.
Chuck. Bill?
I would like to speak in support of the continued funding of this event. Just to add to the list of organizations, the Watershed Task Force thanks the Marines every year for the help that they give us in keeping our beaches clean. We present a Marine holiday dinner in December. The budget for that is well over $10,000. It includes entertainment, a sit-down dinner, and gifts for every Marine who attends. So we bring in somewhere around 100 to 110 Marines every year. We also have assisted in a barbecue, a beach barbecue, which took place a few months ago just before the deployment of a company of Marines. And so just to add to the community voices, the community does do a lot. And so I would encourage the city to allocate these funds and continue to do their part as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bill, the motion?
Not a motion
Comments?
yet. Can staff come up? I just want it clear for the public why we brought this up again. I think in the past, and they said it, we only paid 50%. And somehow a year or so ago, we started paying all of it. So we didn't budget for it this year because that was the agreement.
Correct, and we just wanted, since it appears as it'll be an ongoing thing, and we're not disputing that, we just want to make sure the council's aware of that, and going forward, if the council's wishes to fund it 100% in the next fiscal year's budget, we will begin budgeting 100% of those costs in addition to the other marine-related activities that we provide.
So my other question was, if it used to be less than it is now, and maybe this event has grown exponentially, and that's why we covered it 50/50, that was one of my questions.
I thought the same thing, but I went back all the way to 2011, looking at the expenditure history, and it's always fluctuated right around $12,000 to $13,000. So it really hasn't changed much, and both me and the city manager, James Maxinoff, have had an opportunity to go and actually witness, as Wayne spoke about. It's a great event. It's a huge event. And last year, they even ran out of some of the food because there were so many attendees. And James says that because he didn't get a burger. But
I don't think I did either. I'm pretty sure I didn't get one either.
But yeah, it's a great event. But we just wanted to make sure the council was
It
aware.
was my off Friday, and I did get a beer, though, so that was good.
I wanted to mention that, I'll go ahead and move the item, but I wanted to mention that the reason we have to bring this back and do this is because this is not how we budget. We can't just off the fly change some contract of what we're going to do. If it's something that we budget for, we have to have this set in motion. So that's why it's back, and I appreciate staff bringing this back.
Thank you.
So I'll move it.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Passes 3-0. Thank you.
The other item that the council pulled, Mayor Pro Tem Dan Bain, Eric Sund, Assistant City Manager. Tonight before you, you have a recommendation to approve an amended and restated CASA, Coastal Animal Services Authority Joint Powers Authority Agreement. Very briefly, when the city of San Clemente transitioned its active employees into CalPERS in June of 2014, CASA did not go with City of San Clemente because they're a separate legal entity. The employees voiced a concern about wanting to be in CalPERS. We initiated the application process. CASA was denied. The denial is attached to your staff report. And as we've done our due diligence with BBK, and we have the attorney here, Isabel from BBK, if there's any additional questions, we realized that we needed to do some amendments to the JPA agreement to clearly identify things that were weaknesses with CalPERS in the application process. And so before you tonight, we have that redlined amended agreement that if the council chooses to approve, it'll be going to the CASA board at a later date, executed, and then we'll reapply CASA with CalPERS. And so that concludes staff report. Any questions, I stand ready.
Yeah, I just had one quick, and the reason I pull this item is anytime you're updating a JPA agreement, I always want to make sure that we've got flexibility. If we wanted to expand services or powers or anything like that for this JPA, could we still do that? Are we foreclosed from that, or do we need to do that now?
Great question, Mayor Pro Tem Dan Bain. Yes, we could. If that was the direction tonight from the council, what I would recommend is that approve it in its form that you have before you tonight, so we can go to the CASA and execute that. Myself with Isabel will work on bringing that executed, amended, restated agreement back to the council at a later date, and we'll provide language in that agreement that reflects the potential of wanting to add more services at a later date. Absolutely.
Okay, I think I'd like to do that just to maintain flexibility for this JPA, so.
Let me just comment, when you say flexibility, you're talking about expanding the JPA to include other municipalities. I'm 100% behind that. I just don't know that we would get the support from other municipalities for that. There's a whole backstory to a lot of what's going on in the county, but I'm totally comfortable with keeping the door open in case things do change. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have direction for staff.
Absolutely. So if you want to take the vote on that, I have the direction. I'll bring it back to council within the next 3 to 5 months with those changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll move the item with the additional direction that we look at possibly expanding the JPA later on.
Understood.
Right? Second.
Ideas, just before we move on.
No ideas yet.
Okay, there's nothing percolating?
Nothing percolating yet.
Okay.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Passes 3-0.
Okay. Okay, I know that council already announced that they would continue, that you would continue the public hearings, but I would like to announce them so you could take a vote. Okay. Yeah, I was going to announce
I'm sorry.
2 public hearings because you actually haven't voted.
Sure,
To
so-
continue the public hearing. So the first one is public hearing to consider an appeal of conditional use permit 18534 AT&T small cell in the public right-of-way at 3018 Camino Veracruz.
Before we do that, I just want to take a quick poll. Can you raise your hands if you're here to speak on that item? Just 2 people left in the audience? Okay. So we will be hearing this item October 1st, as was stated by James and our current city attorney. But I just want to clarify that Dan won't be here, but Laura will, so we will have full city council to hear this item. Or not a full city council, we'll have a council majority or quorum to hear this item. So it will be heard on the 1st, and I want to apologize for anybody that did secure any time off to be here. But we will be heard October 1st.
So with that, I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to the city council meeting of October 1st, 2019 for both A and B.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passes 3-0.
Next item is a report from the Public Works Director, City Engineer, concerning a possible letter of support for Senate Bill 465 regarding the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Bain and City Council members. Tom Vonnegut, Public Works Director. As announced, the item is before you is for your consideration on whether your council wishes to submit a letter in support of legislation sponsored by Senator Pat Bates. In summary, as I mentioned in the report, the issue concerns what we call the legislative route to ensure continued funding for efforts of the local agencies, which includes members of the South County cities, the County of Orange, and San Diego County, to continue our nuclear preparedness and emergency planning efforts beyond the time period of the current memorandum of understanding, which expires in a few years. I understand we may have some comments, and I can wait for questions then, and I also may have some additional information to share on a recent letter that we received by email this afternoon from Southern California Edison.
Great, thanks, Tom. Any questions now? All right, so our speaker is Manuel Camargo.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Dan Bain and members of the City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to comment on this item tonight. My name is Manuel Camargo, and I am Principal Manager for Decommissioning for Songs in Southern California Edison, or SCE. And we at SCE, I would say, share some common goals with the local communities, and I would thank the City Council, including things like public safety, very importantly, as well as moving the spent fuel off of the San Onofre site as soon as is practical to do so. First, let me reiterate that we at SCE are committed to continued funding for San Clemente and some of the other agencies currently being compensated for off-site emergency planning support. We've demonstrated that ongoing commitment to emergency planning by contributing approximately $10 million to local government since 2015, when funding was no longer required or mandated by law. That includes about $1 million for the city of San Clemente. We also have made clear that future funding for local governments must be commensurate with the reduced risk that exists now and will continue to decline in the future, as Songs is no longer an operating plant. After SCE retired Songs in 2013, The risk of emergency action levels, as they're called, were reduced from 82 types during operations to 18. And when all spent fuel is in what we call passive dry cask storage next year, the emergency action levels will drop from 18 to 4. And more importantly, events that would result in an off-site radiological release would reduce to 0, so 0 chance of that. SCE has an existing MOU with San Clemente and the other jurisdictions. We are the only decommissioning plant in the country that funds off-site emergency planning, but we do have a fiduciary responsibility to our customers to continue to spend every penny wisely, and we must align the future funding with reduced risk. So that is what we're striving to do here. Over the past year, we've worked with Senator Bates and her staff on SB 465, providing information regarding the reduced risk. Importantly, I would just like to highlight a couple of quick things to correct the record. There was some information in both the staff report and the draft letter, and just want to make the council aware. That includes inaccuracies related to the 2017 National Advisory Council's recommendation to FEMA regarding emergency planning needs. Number 2, SCE's effort to develop a successor memorandum of understanding, and then also an assertion that SCE would be changing contractors that will do the work for us on a regular basis. That is not the case. So let me just close by saying that SCE has partnered with San Clemente since the early 80s. We value that partnership, and we look forward to continued positive and productive relationship with the city.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any questions, comments?
Tom, can you come back up? Are you going to tell us about something you received today?
Yes, I am. Excuse me for a minute, I have to get to the right page. So I received an email communication, and Manuel covered 3 points, but I want to be more explicit and more detailed on those points, in addition to some others that SCE staff that we've been working with provided. So, and I apologize, I don't have copies for you. I'm going to paraphrase the nature of the concerns and our city's response. But in order, you just heard a concern about inaccuracies with a statement in the staff report on page 1 regarding the May 2017 National Advisory Council meeting. And it is true that the specific recommendations from that meeting we didn't mean to imply that a specific recommendation came for continued funding, but that was the context of the discussion that led to recommendations which were on other issues. Our point is, it's the same point, my follow-on sentence, that we still feel that there's a need for funding for emergency preparedness while there's nuclear fuel stored on the site. But I do want to make that clarification. Secondly, staff pointed out on the second page of the staff report, that paragraph that we are accusing Edison of dragging their feet because the agreement will expire and that gets them off the funding hook. And it's not our intent, or we didn't mean to accuse that they're deliberately doing that, but the point is that Edison does not have any basically incentive to do anything beyond the state of the current MOU, and we've now been at this for 2 years, and so staff has a legitimate concern of your city and the other cities, San Juan Capistrano, Dana Point, County of Orange, and County of San Diego, that this is taking a while, and to date we have had no senior level executive commitment from Edison on whether they intend to actually pursue and adopt a successor MOU. I'm not making any indications about the staff level we're working with. I don't doubt the sincerity of Manuel and his staff. We've been meeting with them, but I am deeply concerned about the senior executive or executives who have the authority to enter into a new MOU. To date, we haven't heard, and in fact, we have been described in prior meetings as that there may be, in fact, the opposite desire, just to not do another MOU. If we're wrong, we'd love to get that. We'd love to get that in writing to know which way. But because we haven't, our staff's recommendation to you in the County of Orange that we support this legislation and attempt a legislative route. Additionally, in that comment letter, there were 3 particular concerns or issues that Edison staff had. On page 1, in the 1-2-3rd paragraph in the middle, There's a statement that starts with the decommissioning of San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station, and it goes on to talk about complications regarding failure, steam generator, et cetera, that isn't supportive of not a reason to continue to support off-site emergency planning efforts, because there never has been an incident. Well, it's true, and we didn't say there's never been an incident that required an off-site response, but that's why we plan for the unforeseen, and I'm sure no one foresaw those events happening, and so it's our position we still need to prepare for the unexpected. We do agree that the last sentence of the paragraph, and Manuel also brought this up, we didn't mean this to sound as a definitive because we can't predict in the future either. But again, the IPC members, which is not only your staff but of the other cities, we have legitimate concerns that we've discussed in our meetings about just what's going to happen over this process. Are we going to have multiple contractors? What are the potential hazards? And so if your council is not comfortable with that statement, we have no problem striking it from the letter. As Edison staff suggested, it's not needed to make the point to support the legislation, but I did want to point that out in fairness. And finally, the last comment, again, was at the end of the comment letter, and it had to do with the similar statement in the staff report indicating what we feel is sort of a protracted and lengthy discussion or negotiation about the MOU with right now no end in sight. And I think we would have much more comfort, we, the IPC members of, again, San Juan, Dana Point, and the counties, that someone at a level that can make that commitment, they're either committed to the legislative route via this legislation, or they're committed to an MOU. So I just wanted to point that out. That's the gist of the key points that we received late today by email.
Kathy?
Tom, Mr. Camargo mentioned in the past funding was $1 million to San Clemente, but this report talks about $193,600 for San Clemente. Is that our current budget for planning?
So the current cap is an annual cap of $193,000. So I'm pretty sure what was mentioned was that was probably a cumulative amount provided over the course of the MOU to date.
Okay. So would you say that that $193,000 is commensurate with the reduced risk that we're going to be going into with the storage? Or
well, that's the whole gist of the negotiations. Okay. And Edison staff continue to say that. It's our position. We agree that there are levels of lowered risk, not just yet. And so it's not here in the staff report because, or the recommendation letter, because it's also not in the legislation, but we have offered, and this has been a discussion, a reduced funding table, which is a reduced glide down, where we maintain the full funding for a couple more years until the fuel is completely stored. And then it goes down to 75% while the deconstruction activities, and then it goes down to 50% while fuel remains stored on site. That has been the IPC members' position to date. I think it's fair to say that I don't think SCE staff fully support that, or that's the negotiation that's going on. We have a difference of opinion about what the appropriate glide down should be.
Okay. Well, I think I can see why we're concerned while it's still in wet storage in the fuel pools, that we don't know what can happen. It's not in dry storage yet, so I can see why you're doing that, and I appreciate staff negotiating that.
Any comments? So I'm going to support the letter, but I just think we should delegate to staff to make any corrections, additions, whatever they think's appropriate in the letter. Based on this, I don't want to nitpick from the dais what you guys put in the letter, but what you think's appropriate responding to comments that you've received.
With that general direction, what I'd like to suggest is there are some things we'll take out and modify slightly. I think it still keeps the main spirit and message to support Senator Bates in this legislation, and we're okay with that, and I think it still accomplishes what we're trying to do.
Great, so I'll make the motion that we approve staff recommendation to approve and authorize Mayor Pro Tem to execute a letter expressing the city's support for Senate Bill 465 with a delegation to staff to make the determinations as to how to appropriately revise the letter that we have. All in favor? Aye. Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
A card just came for that item, so.
There's an item?
It's for this item. I just was late getting here, and I'm sorry for
Do you guys have any objection to letting him speak? Please.
I'm sure it won't affect your decisions, but my name's Gary Hedrick, representing San Clemente Green, and it's a no-brainer that we want to support this bill. I just want to point out to the city, people that are listening, there's a little history here to this process we're experiencing. And first of all, emergency preparedness for evacuation from this area has never been a viable option. And I'm so glad there's still an opportunity to maintain the emergency planning that's already in place. But it in no way prepares us for an event at San Onofre in particular. And the point is that in the past, Edison never really had to challenge this question. They didn't have to request variants that would make it so they didn't have to pay for emergency planning anymore. If they felt there was a need for emergency planning, they should have just kept it the way it was. But instead, they've kind of manipulating public opinion by saying, okay, well, we've got this approval to not have to pay so much anymore, but out of the goodness of our heart, we're still going to do this and try and make the community safer. And at the same time, well, not at the same time, but at other times, they're saying we need to get this fuel out of the pools and into the ground as soon as possible because it's so dangerous. And which way is it? I mean, is it dangerous, or do they just want to save public face and reassure us that everything's okay because, we don't really need all these emergency preparedness things, but, if you feel better, we'll keep doing that. And I think that's a very dangerous position for the community to fall into, where we feel this false sense of security. So the bill is a no-brainer, like I said, but there's so much more we can do. There's no, we haven't even used the full extent of the money that's available to us, and we should do more to prepare our citizens for sheltering in place, which is a sensible reaction to a situation like that. And we don't have any means of addressing a leaking or damaged canister still, even though we've experienced that close call with nearly dropping a canister. There would never have been recourse. We would just be sitting there with a damaged canister, either jammed into a silo that can't be removed or possibly leaking, but we need either a hot cell or the spent fuel pools need to remain on site. And that's, there's a list of things we have, and we're preparing a resolution for the city to consider. Solana Beach and Del Mar both passed similar resolutions, but it's, this bill is a step in the right direction, but as a community, I hope we can do a lot more to be prepared.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
Okay. Next item is a report from the Public Works Director, City Engineer, concerning possible suspension of the Opportunistic Sand Replenishment Program and a letter of support for Corps of Engineers funding.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Tom Vonnegut, Public Works Director. So this action, or this item, is to request two actions of your council tonight. The first, as detailed in the background on the staff report, is to formally concur with staff and at this time suspend our efforts under our Opportunistic Sand Replenishment Program. And as I discussed, what that really means is that we're just not going to continue pursuing permit renewals of the four permits required to keep that program alive, if you will, and let current permits expire. We believe at this time it's just becoming pretty onerous. It used to be a relatively straightforward process. It's not. We did have a good discussion on this item at the Coastal Advisory Committee, and I do believe the chair is here and may wish to make some comments. But the long and short after that discussion is that the Coastal Advisory Committee did recommend, with staff's recommendation to you, with the important caveat that the committee wanted you to direct us, and staff agrees, to continue to monitor for potential sand replenishment opportunities on an annual basis. What that means as a practical matter is we would continue to go out, look for known areas where there might be sand, and if so, come up with an estimate and report back to you on whether at that point, based on our estimated costs and re-permitting, pursuing such a project, given the potential source of sand, would make sense. These sources of sand aren't usually ones that just pop out of nowhere. They're typically long-planned projects. The two sources we had before were from the County of Orange when they were dredging the Santa Ana River, and those don't happen overnight. So once we become aware of something, we would have time, if it's your council's desire, to go through the process, get permits hopefully, and budget monies. That's usually the big cost. The sand is typically free. There's no cost, but it costs a lot, as you are well aware, to get it down here. So that's the first action. The second action, I provided a brief update on our big Army Corps of Engineers project. We're just currently in the design phase. What that means is the environmental agencies require 2 years of pre-construction monitoring. That's happening. However, the Corps needs money in their upcoming budget cycle to finish the design phase. We are good on our side. This is a cost-shared effort, but between grants from the state and budget monies you've already allocated, we have our local share ready. We made that point hopefully very clear to the Assistant Secretary of the Army on his West Coast swing. He is supportive. I think he was very impressed by the fact that it looks different on an aerial photo when you see the tracks and how close they are to the ocean. So, to that end, the second action is to request your approval of a comment letter to our elected representatives, both Senators Kamala Harris and Dianne Feinstein, and Representative Mike Levin, to, again, in the federal appropriations process, do what they can to get the Corps their money to continue the design phase. I do have some good news to report, and I also mentioned here the city manager exercising his authority. We did enter into a limited term contract with a federal lobbyist, or contract, excuse me, that we've used before. They have particular expertise in beach restoration, and based on their efforts, they were recently able to get some very favorable language in the recent Senate appropriations bill that has passed through the Appropriations Committee. It's still pending a vote on the Senate floor. We think that might happen next week, and if that goes, then it has to get reconciled with the House. But what's advantageous is it provides the sufficient funding to the Corps, and it specifically qualifies that the funding has to be for already authorized projects. So it limits the universe, and it really helps San Clemente because we are authorized, and so hopefully we'll compete well. There's not a lot of other projects that could grab it. And it could also help Solana and Sanitas to the south. So we do recommend, and our consultant helped with that letter, and we're happy for their efforts, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Questions? Nope. Great. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate the staff report, too. It's very good. So our first speaker is Ken Nielsen, and then Bill Hart. And Susan, you'll be third in line.
Good evening, Council, again. We've done two opportunistic sand projects in San Clemente, both of them at North Beach. First one was kind of a mess, the second one worked great. If you've looked at lifeguard headquarters right now, the sand's all the way to the top of the sheet pile. Before we did that, it was down 4 feet. Those of you that lived here know that. It worked. It wasn't that much sand. Didn't cost that much money. Sand costs a lot of money. If you do it, if you do a beach replenishment project, it costs millions of dollars. I've worked on all of them at Sandag. That's what I did for the last 20 years. And we started this thing with the Corps of Engineers in 2001. When is it now? 2019, and they're still picking that, doing whatever. They're dysfunctional. To count on that sand getting here from the Corps of Engineers, don't hold your breath. I don't see it being a real thing yet. And I've worked on a half a dozen of the projects for that project. But where is it? It doesn't take that long to get a job done. And let's keep that opportunistic sand thing, or be able to do it quickly, because there'll be more of it that we can get from the riverbed. And that sand now, we know what we did wrong the first time. We didn't do it that second time. That sand is the right color. It's coarse. It stays on the beach real good. We put it there at a bad time during the winter, so it sucked it out, but it just moved it down the beach. So a lot of the beaches are healthy down there. Also, let's push some sand this year. We've done that in the past. We need to start doing it again. we have to steal back the sand that Mother Nature steals from us. So if you know what I'm talking about, push some sand back up way high, save it like the other cities do. Then when the summer comes, push it back down and we'll have some sand for free. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Bill? Followed by Susan.
It's funny that Ken mentioned 2001. Actually, sand replenishment was a discussion in the predecessor to the Coastal Advisory Committee, which was the Beach Ad Hoc Committee, so it even goes back farther than that. We have been talking about sand for a long time, and it is discouraging that the major replenishment that is in perpetual planning and design by the Corps of Engineers just keeps dragging on and on and on. I was not involved in the second opportunistic sand replenishment, but we were involved in the first one. As you all know, I was chairman of the Coastal Advisory Committee for 14 years. And you know, it does make a difference. People say, well, you put it on North Beach, it goes away in a couple of years. Well, that's true, but Ken is exactly right. It does move down the beach, and it does make a difference. We're seeing that right now. That being said, with the permitting requirements and the funding that it takes to continue to maintain that permit, I'm fine with suspending it as long as it can be brought back quickly. For instance, if there's an opportunity to move sand from the Santa Ana riverbed, we see it, you know, a year or two in advance, and generally these things are scheduled that far out, then as long as we can bring it back quickly, then I don't see any reason to continue to expend funds to maintain a permit that, you know, has only been used twice in the last, I don't know, 15 years. So that's my position on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Susan?
Well, I followed two of the best coastal advisory committees the city started with. I sat on the commission and on the committee rather with them for some time and really profited by learning from them. I do support exactly what Tom is asking for, and so do my committee members. We looked forward to getting a full presentation from him last month at our meeting, and we did indeed got one from him. Therefore, we recommended suspending the sand replenishment program rather than getting rid of it. We wanted to have something in our back pocket. We wanted to have alternatives. We wanted to be sure that if something happened, we could cover a crisis, an emergency, bad weather, etc., which we're all witnessing with climate change right now. So I support, and the Coastal Advisory Committee has asked me to be here to echo the support of suspending the program and reviewing it on an annual basis to see what our needs are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Questions, comments, motion?
So I move that we, one, suspend the opportunistic sand replenishment program and focus on the proposed Corps of Engineers and replenishment project, but continue to monitor for potential sand replenishment opportunities on an annual basis. Two, approve and authorize the Mayor Pro Tem to execute a letter urging the city's congressional representatives to support federal funding to the Corps of Engineers for the San Clemente Sand Replenishment Project. Excuse me.
All in favor? Aye. Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Next is a report from the Public Works Director concerning fees for use of the new charging stations at City Hall, 910 Cayo Negosio.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's me again, Tom Bonnigan, Public Works Director. I'll just leave this as, does the council have any questions for me at this time about the recommended action?
I don't have any questions. Anybody have any questions? No. So motion? I don't think so. I don't see any.
Okay. I'll move that we adopt staff recommendation, resolution number 19-30, entitled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, establishing a fee schedule for electric vehicle charging stations."
Second. All in favor? Aye. Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Oral Communications Part 2, I do have cards.
So first up is Mr. Malamud, followed by Tony Rubelino.
Council, I guess it's activism time. I found Chris's comments on oral communications to be quite interesting. The full truth for everybody that was listening is that council voted last week or 2 weeks ago to only allow people to speak once at oral communication. The previous limit had been twice. You could speak once at each one. So you killed a gnat with a sledgehammer. It's now 7:39 and almost all the time has been taken up by staff or council, or a good portion of it. And yet, people who spoke before may have things to say about the actions taken by council tonight. Why wouldn't you let them speak? I propose that if it was 10 o'clock or later, you apply that rule, but staff voted it down. Council voted down. What's wrong with council? What's wrong with free speech? What's wrong with transparency? We still haven't adopted transparency in this town. We still withhold documents left and right. I just don't understand it. And I don't understand, if you're going to do that, why did staff just come up here a few minutes ago and speak for 10 or 15 minutes on something that was in an agenda report? The last one was handled correctly. If it's in the agenda report, don't have staff talk. If you have questions, ask them. But why do we waste time? And the further thing is, as much as I like Mickey, and I do, why do we let people have a presentation talk as long as they want? Why don't we have a 3-minute limit for that also? And finally, I would suggest that if this council really wants to limit people from talking, which they apparently do since they voted to do that, why don't we limit council and limit them to 3 minutes each? And that way we'll get out of meetings at 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, maybe 7 o'clock. The council, if they're supposed to, by your own rules, you're supposed to be prepared on each item. You're supposed to call staff if you have a question ahead of time. So all that should be, and that's the rules, Chris. You know that's the rules, right? Well, fair enough. But if council does their job ahead of time, which we voted you in to do, and we respect what you're doing, we don't need to have the crosstalk with staff and all this stuff. It should be done ahead of time. These council meetings could be over in half the time if council did what they're supposed to do, and we limit council's time, and we stop this incessant cross-talking by council, which violates Robert's Rules of Order. I'm not sure if it violates the current rules, and is unnecessary, and let's get you to talk ahead of time with staff. Go ahead and vote. You already know what you're going to do anyways. We don't need to have you justify it with questions of staff unless you truly don't know the answer. And then my question is, why don't you know the answer? Because you're supposed to talk to before the meeting. Thank you.
Tony Rubolino.
Council, the topic tonight is the misuse of public funds and a position of authority. Next slide. Earlier this month, there was a fire ops demo, and what those are, I learned, is an opportunity for the Orange County Fire Authority firefighters to demonstrate techniques and technology. This particular one was invite only to the board of directors, and each city in the contract has a representative. However, if you look over on the left, the young socialist running for a council seat was also able to attend. Next slide, who is our OCFA representative? Why, it's none other than Kathy Ward. Maybe Kathy might be able to fill us in a little bit on what exactly went down. Next slide. Through these pictures, you can see some really lovely shots of board of directors plus one city council candidate taking pictures in campaign gear, in publicly funded gear, in front of publicly funded equipment. Wait a minute, who's that? Next slide, let's zoom in a little bit. Why, it's Kathy Ward with the Young Socialist. Wow, look at that. Kathy, was this a guest of yours as the board of director to a publicly funded event? Wow. Next slide. The Orange County Fire Authority took this extremely serious, this egregious violation, and issued a cease and desist on Friday to the campaign. It's really difficult to read, but let's go through it anyway. Next slide. The cease and desist legal concerns were outlined as the Orange County Fire Authority did not authorize the Hinkle campaign to use the OCFA registered logo. It is not permitted in campaign materials. Number 2, it is a potential violation of California Government Code Section 3206. A local agency may not participate in political activities of any kind while in uniform. And last, unlawful for officials to use public resources for campaign purposes. This triggers a campaign reporting requirement. Next slide. The ramifications of this incident have led to multiple public record searches initiated. I'm told an FPPC complaint was filed, and a full police investigation has been launched, and the findings will be turned over to the district attorney to determine if a crime was committed. Chris Ham, I understand that you were present at this event as well. I think the public would love to hear from the two of you who were at this event how this went about. What were the inner workings of this? Because it was a board of director invite only. The Hinkle campaign, if it had any ethics whatsoever, would return the $5,000 they got from the fire union and step away from the endorsement they've gotten because it's a completely egregious violation.
Thank you, Mr. Rubelino.
I just need to clarify the record. I wasn't at that event. I spent as little time as possible at headquarters.
And city council.
Next is, excuse me, folks, please.
City manager? City attorney?
Nothing.
Council members?
Councilmember Ward.
I have a quick two things that were mentioned tonight. I was wondering if council would be interested in staff contacting the county and finding out what they recommended for a proclamation or some resolution for us of overturning Prop 4757.
Yeah, I was going to support that as well, definitely.
Good, so I'm glad you're going to follow up on that. And then number two, on the sand pushing, I had a question to the city manager of whether, do we have like some rules or something of how we push to where city council would have to have it come back to us where we could say how, push it up high in the winter and put it back in the summer?
I thought our sand pushing was governed under our beach policy, beach management policies, and we're limited to the numbers of time that we can do the sand pushing, but I'll verify that and get back to the council.
Okay, because one of my concerns is that we try really hard to keep the beach in the wintertime flat for towels or whatever, and maybe we can't.
I know
push more up.
Randy and his staff are very active when the tides present themselves correctly, and along with the surf. If we're having king tides, we're having big minus tides, and we can get out there with the equipment and push sand up, and we're not having a huge storm event, then staff is out there doing all that they can to put the sand up on the beach to save it for the summer.
Okay.
So just real quick, staff used to have 2 times a year that they were allocated to do it, and previous council gave direction to make it more flexible, so it could be more opportunistic with our sand pushing.
I like that. I just wonder if we could have maybe higher hills of the sand. That's what I'm talking about in the winter.
Yeah, the entire process, I mean, it seems like it's really basic. You low tide with no swell, get out there and push sand, but it's actually more complicated than that. And so staff's doing everything they can to push as much sand as possible.
I just wanted to check on that. Okay.
We'll continue to have the conversation with staff.
Great. Are there any other comments? All right.
Okay. The next item is the second reading of Ordinance 1679. That's the Park Ranger Enforcement Authority Ordinance, and I have a speaker card.
Come on up.
Yeah, on this ordinance, is there any way, I don't know if this is, the way you do it, but I read the packet and the ordinance, and it's just very confusing, and I had other people read it and try to make, is there any way you guys could just read what the ordinance is so it's understandable to the public? I know this is even carried on from a last meeting. It's just very confusing as far as the park rangers' purview or whatever. Is there any way somebody, maybe even the city attorney, could just clarify it to kind of like, I know, but maybe just, can somebody just synopsize it maybe? Is there, like I said, I looked at the packet and I still couldn't figure it out.
You want the Cliff Notes?
Yeah, exactly. Is there, maybe, I don't know if that's possible, but that's all I was asking. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, so if I hear the question correctly, what's the role of the park rangers?
Yeah, what's the role?
So, absolutely. As part of your budget process where you adopted the current year's budget, One of the things that you approved in that budget was to reclassify park monitors to park rangers. The goal of that was to allow park rangers, and I think you took action at your last council meeting to amend the code to allow park rangers to issue parking citations in public spaces. And I know there was an earlier comment, and I know Lieutenant Manhart's here. Ken, the RSVPs have been amazing right now in this void while the park rangers are going to be issuing park citations or parking citations. The RSVPs have been issuing parking citations in the Pier Bowl, in Del Mar, and other public parking lots. On one day, they issued 25 citations, which is a new record. So I want to thank Amber, who's the RSVP chair, who's really taking a hold of that and issuing it. Park rangers will be on board within the next 30 days, and they will be doing regular, consistent parking enforcement in the city's public parking lots as well. So we should see a better amount of consistent enforcement in all of our parking lots.
Can I take 10 seconds more, Brian? I was under the impression they were going to be able to do other besides just parking, like other, city municipal codes. Is that still?
So I'm going to say baby steps. We're starting with the code modification just specific to parking citations. For them to take on other citation matters, it requires them to go through post trainings and some other things that take longer time. So we knew there was a need for parking citations as the #1 priority, and then we'll be looking at other factions down the road that can help lessen the load for OCSD so they can enforce the important status crimes while we supplement that with code and park rangers.
Yeah, and so very briefly, we're rolling new items in for enforcement as we're able to train and onboard park rangers.
That is correct. Thank you.
Clarification. Government at work there.
All right, so I'll make the motion to adopt staff recommendation, adopt ordinance number 1679, entitled an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, amending Title I of the San Clemente Municipal Code to establish enforcement authority for park rangers. Have a second, all in favor? Aye. Passes 3-0.
And the next item is the second reading of ordinance number 1680 relating to sidewalk vending regulations, and I have a card for that one also.
Hoi and Nip.
Good evening, Council. I didn't expect you to be the first one to talk about this. So, okay, last time, after my comment, the next comment was this bill was pretty stupid. That was my first thought. But then I was thinking, when you're a tourist, you go to Manhattan, you see their street vendors, you buy their food, right? It happens in Singapore, it happens everywhere. So it's just new here. I think one of the reasons is that we don't have a lot of people here. It's not as crowded as Manhattan, Singapore. But this arena number will help. It will get crowded here. So we better get ready. So I do think this staff did a pretty good job on the ordinance itself. So, but there's more work we need to do, as I mentioned. So I hope we could work together to revise the styrofoam ordinance and work on a single-use plastic ordinance. And last Tuesday, at Newport and Laguna City Councils, both of them gave the green light to start working on single-use plastic ban. So you know where to find me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Epp.
Move that we adopt ordinance number 1680, entitled ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, adding municipal code Title 5, Business Licenses and Regulations, Chapter 5.50, Sidewalk Vending, and amend Titles 8, Health and Safety, 9, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare, and 12, Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Places of the Code relating to sidewalk vending regulations in compliance with Senate Bill 946.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Passes 3-0. Motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn to the next regular council meeting, which will be held on October 1st to the 19th. The council chamber is located at 100 Avenue in Presidio, San Clemente, California. Closed session will be considered at 5 p.m. and the regular business meeting will take place at 6.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Passes 3-0.